who I
Yeah.
talked to when Rebecca introduced the two of us. She also does her podcast through Rebecca's channel.
Okay. Yeah.
So she told me you were one of the most inspiring of
Oh.
all of the people that she had interviewed, and she was
Oh.
going to love you. So that's why I reached out to you.
No, thank you.
So tell me your story. That's what these sessions are called. Tell me your story, the Health Muse is in.
Yeah. So, it's probably similar to yours. I got my first illness when I was only like 12 years old. I was diagnosed with endometriosis. And so, I was hemorrhaging in a bathroom and, had to get, my parents to come bring me clothes and get me home. But, I was telling Maria that like my first memories of illness were of shame and to hide it and to not be different and to not let anybody know. And so, I dealt with endometriosis for 30 years of just ridiculous hemorrhaging and pills and painkillers and all of that. But I think it set me on a life to say, disease isn't going to make me different. I'm not going to let anybody know. It's something very shameful. And then I was, just diagnosed with a cascade over the years. It was, I had severe colitis. I was always hemorrhaging and landing in the ER, and yeah, they would say, well, you're going to have your colon resected. It's, you got 18 inches of ulceration here. And we don't know why. There was never a why.
No,
I had gastroparesis, so I couldn't
that's
eat.
why. They're trained to
Yeah,
get
never
sick.
a why. So I had severe gastroparesis. I had severe gastritis. Eventually I went to Mayo Clinic for 14 days to their GI and OB-GYN departments. And after 14 days of solid testing, they sent me home with their Mayo Clinic cookbook. And in hindsight, what astounds me is that I still have the blood work where I had antibodies to gluten, for example. And the cookbook was all, it was kind of a Mediterranean diet. It was gluten heavy. They didn't mention at all that maybe that was a factor, could have been a factor.
They probably
Let's see, I got Lyme disease, and shortly thereafter, I was diagnosed with narcolepsy, which was a nightmare. So I went 20 years without getting a proper night's sleep. I had a movement disorder. So they put me on drugs for bipolar and depression, and I wore these big patches for Parkinson's, and I was always getting weird um, side effects, I mean, just so many drugs. And then eventually it was, fibromyalgia and autoimmune thyroid. And then I continued to get sicker and sicker and sicker until and I will say during all of this time, I started my career as a psychologist, and then I moved into the corporate world, and I was climbing the corporate ladder. And through all of this, just chronic pain, loads of drugs, lack of sleep, no one knew. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't want anybody to know. And like you said, I felt like stress was a badge of honor, right? I could stay up late and I could
yeah,
do more and I could drink more.
and I can
And
work harder.
I work harder. And, and I had cardiologists and hematologists and, GI docs. I had neurologists saying, the hematologist saying your blood work is crazy, but I don't know why. The neurologist was saying you've lost all this nerve function. We don't know why. Nobody ever had a theory. And finally, I was working and I was teaching a corporate class to about 300 people. And people kept saying, you look sick. You don't look well. Like, you need to go to the hospital. I'm like, I'm fine. Well, collapsed in the middle and was hospitalized. And I had severe pleuritis and pericarditis. So I had fluid around my heart, my lungs. It hurt to breathe or anything like that, which is when I was finally diagnosed with systemic lupus. And that was sort of why, oh, my joints were destroyed and my heart was being, attacked, and my lungs, and I had these rashes, and I developed UV sensitivity, and I wasn't able to go outside, in daylight hours anymore. And really, um, I just declined until I was disabled. So by 2014, I was not able to work. I was not able to get out of bed. I had full body pain. And I remember my rheumatologist showing me it makes me cry, but you would have thought the low point was my rheumatologist said, your lupus is now attacking your DNA. And unlike your heart and lungs, I can't give you a transplant. And I'm thinking, well, that's not who wants a heart lung transplant? But I can't give you a DNA transplant. And so as this thing progresses, we're going to go ahead and start you on chemo and steroids. And here's our infusion suite. And this will go on forever. And you may have some, ups and downs and remissions, but this is a progressive disease that can't be cured. And, it's probably going to take your life. And at that point, we were thinking probably by the time I was 50, because it was progressing pretty significantly.
And you are the biggest example of multiple system
Oh
autoimmune
yeah.
disease
I
that
mean, it
I've
just,
met. And people don't understand that if they don't deal with it, they keep coming.
they keep coming because it's, you've got a catastrophic problem with your immune system, right? And so I remember my OB-GYN, who's a lovely woman. I remember telling her, I said it, you won't believe it, but I've now been diagnosed with systemic lupus. And she looked at me and she said, honey, I believe it. You are an autoimmune shit show. And we laughed, and I still think it's hilarious because she was like one of the only doctors that was just straight up with me that, I'm not shocked. Um, and that still wasn't rock bottom, right? Being told I probably wouldn't live to be 50. I knew nothing about health. And so my husband and I went on a vacation, and I was too sick to get out of bed. I was too sick to read a book, to sit and to go outside, anything. And that was my rock bottom. So I came home and I cried because I realized I was too sick to do absolutely nothing. And my husband had heard about this thing called the Wahl's protocol 8 months prior. And he said that he knew I'm stubborn. I call it Texas stubborn. I did not believe in diet and lifestyle. I was not healthy. I knew nothing about it. I had no interest in it. And he knew, as sick as I was and disabled, I wasn't going to listen. So I hit rock bottom, and he brought the book out and told me he bought it for me 8 months before. And I told him he was full of shit. Everybody was full of shit. But I had no choice. So I said, I'll give it 30 days.
Could not have bought you a better book.
Yeah, right. I know. I said 30 days because, and what I realized, Cheryl, was when I really did a deep dive, I was terrified of hope. I was terrified that and it still makes me cry, I would hang my hope for healing on something that wasn't going to work. And then I was going to be devastated because that would be sort of like, right, the straw that broke the camel's back. So I gave it 30 days, and I read the book in 30 days. And I understood the science of healing for the first time. Like you were saying, it's cellular damage and cells repair, and it takes time. So I said, okay. And I still have my journal. It was like August 17th, 2014. And I said, I'm going to give this 5 years. And I think there's the mistake a lot of people make, right? Is not go long. So I said, in 5 years.
It took a whole lifetime to get to where we were.
Yeah,
It's not going to happen at the snap of the fingers.
I was sick when I was 12, and I was 40, like 43 at the time. So I said 5 years from now, and I wrote the date in the book. And, at that 5 year mark, not only was I off medicine, I had healed from everything, all of it, except I still take thyroid meds. By 5 years, I had no autoimmune antibodies at all. So nothing. And while that was like this amazing success, and in 2018 I felt like I have my life back. I was now a positive psychology coach. I was really, I was really like, I knew I could get healthy. And I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer just out of nowhere. And I believe cancer is very complicated, and I believe it's an intermix of many, many things. I had many risk factors, but it was 98% estrogen driven. And I knew from my health journey that my estrogen was screwy because my methylation was screwy.
Yeah.
But I had taken massive amounts of immune suppressants for lupus, and I was taking a very powerful growth factor for the narcolepsy. And I think that was really a dangerous combination. So, people say, well, why did you get cancer? There's no easy answer to that, but
there's a point at which your body just can't handle anymore.
My immune system was, as Andrew Wahl says, it was a catastrophic failure of the immune system to start with. So I spent 2019 bald and in bed and undergoing vicious chemo and radiation. And every time I got a lab report back, it was worse. You've got extensive vascular invasion and chemo and nothing really took care of that. And I remember at the end of a year of this like brutal in bed, wearing diapers, horrific journey, my surgeon saying, we didn't get it all. So it's up to your immune system now. And I burst into tears because I thought, well, no, wait a minute. World's worst immune system. No, but I have been in the clear for over a year now. This is my hair growing back.
Congratulations, my God.
I finally this week, I have been at a place for a while that I have thought lupus was the greatest blessing in my life. It has enhanced my life in ways that never would have been. I finally am in therapy, and I've gotten, and last week I got to this place where I was able to say, gosh, cancer was this beautiful blessing, and it's just going to lead to all of these amazing things. And I released the fear of, my immune system and I have gotten to be great friends. And I trust it. I trust my immune system. And in fact, I'm so proud of it, because what I really think autoimmunity is a Texas stubborn immune system. And he's trying really hard to help you out. It's just confused, right? And so there's a mental,
Be healthy, but we don't give it the stuff so that it can do that.
right. I mean, it was just, confused, just like I was doing all the wrong things. So I love my immune system, and I'm really proud of it. I really think it just, like me, it needed redirection in life. And so, I'm getting there, but I believe wholeheartedly, like you, there's always hope for healing. I mean, always, always. My mission is to spread the word. I cannot look at somebody and say, you will heal and you'll heal this much. I know for a fact, if people give themselves the right tools, they'll heal to some degree. Some of your cells are
What
going to
I
heal.
say is, I don't know if what I have to say will be your solution or not.
Right.
What do you have to
To
lose?
lose. Right. It's true. I mean, I believe the body is a self-healing machine, and I believe that science says there's tools we can give it. And so I really, really, really welcome any opportunity to get the message out there that I believe there is hope for healing of anything. And I don't make any promises to anybody, but I know there's a lot of people out there like me that feared the hope. You don't even get started and you say all the can'ts, right? Because what's the fear? Fear of failure, fear of, you're not going to have the self-discipline, fear of hope. There's a lot of fears there, and I get that.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
you
I
lose
lived
all
a big
the
part
I
of my
can't, I
life
can't, I
with
can't.
fear. Part of the reason I got sick, I think, was because I had so much fear.
Yeah.
Ditching the fear was huge for me.
Yeah. Right. And I still have
I
fear.
married my high school sweetheart. I divorced him when I was 30, and it
Oh,
took me forever to get past the fear that somebody was going to do that to me again.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I was always waiting. Life was going to be better when.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's 1,000% true. And, and I had a very bad marriage, and it ended 16 years ago, and I've just started therapy for that, because I have to admit I'm carrying baggage that I denied. But it's all related, right? So I think we have similar stories, and we're not alone.
Right.
I can't account for why, I really spent 24/7 for 5 years learning about health and healing. But I just want some, and I know the thing that breaks my heart is I know everybody isn't going to listen, or they're not going to take the journey. But if there's somebody out there that's willing to take some steps, like, I want them to hear it.
When
That,
I first started, I went to a book class in Portland, Oregon with a woman. And I was supposed to be there to meet the woman who sat next to me, who looked at me and said, because I was really upset that I would be doing these speeches and that nobody was hearing me. I spoke several times to the cancer group at my local hospital, and I'd go back for a follow-up and nobody had changed anything. She said to me, "Oh, Cheryl," she said, "for God's sake, your job is to put the information out there. You're not responsible for whether or not they hear it." She said it will take 16 times for them to hear something
uh,
before they start to shift. Think about that. It doesn't matter if you're the first or the 16th. you're an important part of their process and their growth. So
Yeah.
just get out there and do
Do
it.
it. Yeah.
And so,
Great advice.
I have adjusted 20 million times to how I deliver my message.
Yeah.
But I know that sometimes it'll land and sometimes it won't. And if it's only one person that hears me, then I was successful.
Yeah, it matters, right? I mean, just one person. And, because what's the ripple effect? What is that one person going to do with their life if they get some of their energy back and their, cognitive, you know, it matters. It matters to that person. It matters to their family. It matters to their mission.
And they deserve to have the life that they always wanted to have.
Yeah.
And I think most people, especially women, don't understand that they have the power. They have the power to change and to make improvements. It may not take them all the way home, but they have the power to put things into place that will improve their life and their health.
Mm-hmm. And not just the power, one of the things that I find is that they're worthy of the effort. Women like, oh, if it was my husband or my child, I would make any sacrifice. I would cook this way and I would do this way, but they have to put the oxygen mask on, right? Because if you want to continue to serve those people you love, you've got to take care of yourself. And I think that's a message that we forget, is that we're worthy of getting well, because we put others first so often, and yet you can't put others first if you're declining.
Right. Right. And I am also fascinated. I always knew it existed with the "we are not enough" syndrome that seems to start in little girls and carries with us through our whole life. And I don't know where that comes from. My husband tells me that men have it too, but it's so much more apparent in women.
Yeah, it's true. I've been a psychologist and a coach for a lot of years of my life, and um, a few years ago, I was working with a lot of men, which was never my mission. My mission was sort of always women, but I did get to work with maybe 40 men in coaching, and I was so shocked. They have the exact same self-talk that we have, which is almost always, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I'm not enough. I mean, those are the big three that people seem to carry, the shame or guilt, or somebody, it's their voice or somebody's voice. They seem to have all the same insecurities and all the same self-talk, but you cannot see it. I mean, I coached a man who was a very successful CEO of a big business, and he had been a special forces guy. Tough, self-assurance was his number one attribute, and he had all the same insecurities and self-talk. So I think it's there, but boy, they don't
Because
they
it's
don't
not
show it.
easy to let that out. Women are a little bit more
We're allowed to talk to each other about it and admit it.
Right.
So I know it's there. I just think there are harder nuts to crack because they are not encouraged to go talk about it. And that's sad. On the flip side, because of testosterone and muscle mass and other things, they're more resilient to sort of chronic low level stress. So they may just not get as sick from it as we do. I love John Gray because he does all the research on hormones and how testosterone allows you to survive low-level chronic stress. In women, that just destroys us.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. And I actually put out a little pocket book. I call it my desktop book, on a series of little 3-minute exercises that I use for stress.
Oh, nice.
I choose them randomly through the day.
Yeah.
Get up and do one of them for 3 minutes. Doesn't take any time.
Yeah.
But my cortisol was so low when I got sick. I was borderline Addison's disease.
Yeah.
And one of my issues right now is I have triggered my chronic fatigue again. So if I can't get it back up to snuff, I take Rodelio drops for it. If I can't get it to come back up, I'm going to have to call my doctor. I'm not seeing her till the end of next month, but I am dragging, and that's not like me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a constant. I get disappointed when something goes wrong with my health, but then I say, no, it's not linear. It's a cycle, and you know what to do, and you'll get back.
I get imposter syndrome when something goes wrong with my health, because I'm out there talking about it all the time. And okay, do I want to tell my group that I've got a health issue? And I've just started, yeah, why not?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, am I not being a role model? Yes. Agreed.
And I have lost 55 pounds. 10 of them were in the last 4 weeks.
Oh,
I lost 45, and then in my jewelry office, I got molded. It was growing. I knew something was wrong. I knew I had mold. I couldn't find it. It was growing in the wall right behind where I sat. And
oh
like
gosh.
I have a methylation problem.
Yeah.
I have done, I think, 5 different things to get rid of the mold, and it just does not want to leave. It comes out of my cells and goes to my liver, and then my liver gets angry and
Yeah. Yeah.
goes back into my cells. So I have a new one I'm about to start. And
Yeah.
well, this one does.
Yeah. That's tough. That's tough.
Uh,
My
and,
mom
but
toxins.
something's happening with it because the weight has started dropping. And that's how
Yeah,
I know
that's
that the
good.
mold must be leaving, because my blood sugar was all wonky
Yeah,
because of the mold.
absolutely. My mycotoxins are always high, and they're always from environmental, like outdoor or dietary. And I don't have the genetic, um, I don't have the genetic issue where I have like genetic issue with mold, but I have such a detox issue with mold. And I spent years researching how to get the mycotoxins out of my food. And I wrote a free guide. It's just on my website, absolutely free, but it helped me so much to get the dietary mold down, because nothing makes me sicker than a moldy food bomb or
Well,
beverage
I
bomb.
follow a woman named Susie Cohen. She's a functional practitioner, but she's a pharmacist.
Okay.
And I learn a lot from her blogs. I actually learned about methylation first from her blogs, and then my functional doctor picked it up when I found her.
Susie
But one
Cohen.
of the things she talks about is to stay away from things like sauerkraut and foods that are high in histamines,
Yeah.
even leftovers.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
Kombucha, all that stuff just triggers it in some of us, and it certainly does in me.
Yeah. It
So,
did for me. I said 5 years. I couldn't go near a probiotic, anything fermented, anything with histamine. Now, 5 years into my healing, I'm great with vinegar and histamine. But boy, it took 5 years before I could even tolerate vinegar. So, you never know.
yeah,
Gosh,
each one of us is different.
Dr. Wahl says what you'll heal for 10 to 20 years, and I'm only 6 years in. So it's like, oh, I got a lot of healing to do. It's very
Well,
exciting.
and what I didn't realize is I had signs that my toxic load was building all along, but they went past
Yeah.
my brain so quick I didn't even
Right.
stop to think about them. And now I look back and go, oh my God, that was all part of it. And my joke, where I started with my functional doctor, is I said to her, I popped out. I was born in Pittsburgh, and I popped out allergic to Pittsburgh. And she said, that's the funniest thing anybody ever said to me, but we're going to test you for MTHFR, because you probably did pop out allergic to Pittsburgh. I remember them oiling the streets to keep the coal and the speed
Oh,
bumps down.
mm,
And I was the mother load when we tested me for heavy toxic metals. I mean, I
right.
had them all at very high
Uh,
levels. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey. If I were young, which I'm not, I'm 71, but if I were young, I'd go back to school and become a biochemist, because I'm quite fascinated with all this stuff.
yeah.
But not enough to go back to for that much schooling at this age.
Well, I can't. I'm going to get both of your books today, and I cannot wait to
And I have
add
one
to
other
the knowledge.
recommended book. It's a book by Dr. Libby Weaver called Accidentally Overweight.
Okay.
Both my husband and I liked it so much we bought them as Christmas presents for people. It's not really as much about weight as she is a biochemist, and she'll like start with the liver and tell you what the liver does, what goes wrong when the liver's not healthy, what you have to do to get the liver back up to snuff, and then how does that relate with your pancreas. And then
Okay.
she'll start on the pancreas. And her bottom line is the whole body has to function
Right.
in order for your body to function properly. And we both learned a lot from reading her.
Okay.
So
Got
it's a
all of
good
these
read.
on my list. I try to read at least one or two health books a month. So I've got several of them here to buy. I love to learn.
Yeah, so do I. And because I'm writing so much now, I'm writing for 3 publications, and I'm writing
Oh,
a
wow.
column in my city's Facebook page every week. And my husband, who I
Amazing.
told you, I've only been married to him for 5 years, he wanted to go on a get well journey with me. That's how I met him, because
Okay.
the guy I was with for 10 years looked at me one day and said, I hate it that you're sick. What would
Oh,
you like me to do about that? So obviously he went. But I took a class from a woman who said, you've got to write your non-negotiable list down and go for it.
yeah.
You will not veer from that non-negotiable list. So I put out all the things I wanted, and John answered, and he lived 10 minutes away and had
Oh.
just lost his wife of 43 years to cancer.
Mm.
But he's a statistician, and he will buy the latest books and pull out the most important passages and email them to
Oh,
me,
how
that I can
adorable.
use them either in a podcast or in something I've been writing about. So we're really a team. He produces my podcasts, he edits
Oh,
my books, and he's finally taking the time to start his own book.
how
So
cute.
yeah.
How adorable.
So when
How
you
and
said,
how important is a supportive spouse in your well-being,
oh
right?
my God, it's night and day. Um,
Being in a bad marriage is really hard on your health.
And you talked about how getting lupus was the best thing that happened to you. Getting autoimmune disease was the best thing that happened to me, because there's nothing about my life today that's the same as it was then.
Yes, I 100%. My job is not the same. My spouse, my nothing. The way I live my life, there's not one thing that's the same. And I never would have gotten here if somebody hadn't told me you probably die by the time you're 50. I would not, because I tell Brandon, my husband, I need a frying pan to the head. I don't heed subtle cues. I'm too stubborn. So it was the frying pan to the head I needed. And I think cancer was the second one, because once I was healed, I started veering a little bit,
Of course.
and I got the message that, and so it's a blessing too.
My joke was, I got the NCIS slap, then I got the bam on my shoulder, and finally I got the 2x4 down on the head.
Right.
And when the 2x4 came down, I
Right.
stopped and paid attention. So yeah,
You.
thank God they got my attention.
Right. Because
And I
look,
was lucky. I'd had my own business for some time. I had a staff that could completely take over for me. So literally, I turned it over. I went in once a week and told them they were all wonderful while I was researching.
isn't that
And they
amazing?
supported me. Now, did the business continue to grow the way it had been? No. But in the end, I still sold it to one of my distributors. So,
Look at the good. Look at the good that you're unleashing into the world now. I mean, what
yeah,
difference have you made to somebody out there, or multiple people out there, to their mental, spiritual, emotional health, that of their families, that of, what mission they're unleashing into the world? I mean, it's
yeah,
incredible
no,
work.
I found my mission.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, that's one of the first things at the top of the list for health.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You have to have a mission.
You have
Absolutely.
to have a mission. I loved my jewelry, but it was also getting to the point where I was selling big box customers like Macy's and JCPenney. They were getting increasingly hostile because there were less of them and more of us. I was
Mm,
just a little manufacturer who was designing stuff
yeah.
specifically for certain customers, but they got abusive. I mean, I added 50 items to a drop ship program for Kohl's, and they didn't get them up in time for Christmas. But I owned all the stock. And they went, oh, well, if you can't handle that, then you shouldn't be doing business.
Uh,
Oh, hey, that's not nice, gang.
yeah.
So John was so happy when I was joking I was going to have to get a plane and drop jewelry, silver jewelry, all over Los Angeles, because
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And I woke up one morning and thought, I have a distributor. They have a brand that I created. Maybe they would buy this sucker from me. And they did. So,
You have the most fascinating life. It's so neat.
but the universe really, when I was ready, the universe really wanted to help me. And I knew I could find what was wrong with my health because my mother had a very rare disease.
Hmm.
And it was called multiple system atrophy. At
Okay.
the time, they thought it was related to Parkinson's. Then, when they gave her 1 year to live. She lived 10. I
Oh
moved
gosh.
back here to be close to her. But when she passed away, I read an article that they decided it really was related to mad cow disease.
Oh gosh.
How did my mother get mad cow disease?
Oh,
And now they don't think it's related to that either. But I had gotten on the internet and read every medical journal I could find about multiple. Oh, gorgeous or not. I
you're so
love
ginger
ginger
baby.
cats are the sweetest. Not to say that your gray guy isn't going to be darling too, but yeah,
This is my 13-year-old baby. He wanted to say hi.
I'm glad. But
He's not
yeah,
a lab kitty, but he's a sweet baby.
I knew more sometimes about my mother's condition than the
Yeah,
leading.
how did she contract that? Do they know?
I would bet because I got MTHFR from the genetics of both my parents.
Right.
I would bet she and my dad both lived most of their life in Pittsburgh till they pulled me out of there because they didn't think I was going to survive. And so I think it was probably related to heavy toxic metals and the things from Pittsburgh. And my dad had a rare, very rare form of epilepsy. So I'm sure that his came from there too.
Yeah.
But they didn't know any of this then.
Oh gosh, no.
But I would get it. I'd say to the doctor, would you humor me and try this? And he'd go, who's the doctor here? I said, yeah, but who's the daughter? It won't hurt to just try it. Who's the daughter?
Right.
And at one point, he told me he thought I was going to sue him. I wasn't going to sue him. But when she died, he called me and told me he wished everybody had a daughter like me because I would cause him to have robust conversations about her health, which
Yeah.
embarrassed her to death. But I knew that I could own my own health and I could find out something that was wrong with me that would make a difference.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many tough elements. I mean, my empathy, like there's so many tough elements to your story, but I have to tell you the way that you project your story with, I mean, you have the most delightful, engaging personality. I can see why your story is, engaging people and won an award. I mean, you have a personality that's just almost mesmerizing. It just draws you in.
Well, because I don't know how to make my books bestsellers on Amazon, what I did was I entered a whole bunch of contests.
Good for
So that at least allows me every time something happens to market the book that this is its 14th award or whatever. The first book has now won 15 awards.
I love it. You're an entrepreneur.
And
it's amazing.
Second book has won 6.
Oh,
Six,
wow.
5, maybe 5 awards. And it just published in May. So every time I win something, I can plaster it everywhere.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys are missing out. What don't you know that my book could help you with?
Yeah, you're an entrepreneur.
So yeah, it's more important that it gives me visibility that I'm winning all these awards, but I'm thrilled that I'm winning them.
Yeah, but it says something about your mission.
I think the beauty of my books, and I want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly when you read them, it's that it's a normal person who is talking about their journey and what they found out. Because it's not written by a doctor. And so I try to go down to the very beginning and build from there. And I don't think most books are that engaging because people haven't gone through it.
Yeah, you've done it. I think part of it is that, okay, you've walked the walk, you've actually been there, you actually know how I'm feeling, you understand, and you did something.
Right. Yeah, I owned it.
Yeah.
And I've never been a victim. So that part all made sense for me. I mean, when my doctor said, congratulations, you're going to be on steroids the rest of your life and go get some therapy, that was not me.
Yeah.
And I am on still some medications.
Yeah.
But I do take a compounded thyroid. I take a pill that's for fibromyalgia that was actually created for people who were addicted to opioids.
Yeah, LDN.
LDN. I take LDN because it was my last giant step away from pain.
Yeah. I took that for probably, I think, 2 years. And it helped with cancer too. A lot of cancer patients are on it.
Yeah, I'm in the LDN group and it doesn't work so well for most of people in there, but they didn't do the work to clean up first. They're still drinking. They haven't cleaned up any of the toxins in their life. And it's the last hurrah. It's not the one that's supposed to cure everything. So let me explain to everyone what happened. We've been just chatting, and it's so juicy and loaded with information. We have decided that this is going to be the podcast, but I want to ask her some last questions so that you all know where to find her when
Yes.
I do actually make this live. So the first question I wanted to ask you, if you could go back to that little girl who first got sick when she was 12, what would you tell her?
Oh, I would tell her, to listen to her body. Your mind and your body are one system. And so when you use one to run the other over, it's not going to do you well. Um, I wish I had understood to listen to my body, that my body was my greatest friend and advocate, that it was sending me information that I needed to listen to and to be in partnership with. I always considered myself a good leader, but I was not a good leader of my body. And so I would definitely, um, the one thing that I tell people a lot is that if you don't maintain your body, and when it's sending you signals that you need to shut down for maintenance, if you don't do that, eventually your body will shut you down involuntarily. I railroaded my symptoms for 30 years thinking you can't stop me. You're not in charge, I am. And I learned different. And so for anyone out there, who's having symptoms of anything, stop and listen. And if you need to shut down for maintenance, do it, because your body will shut down for maintenance if it has to. So I think that's my biggest lesson.
I think you're my twin soul. When
I think so too.
the last time you listened to your body.
Right.
I say that all the time because your body will tell you what's going on, but we have to stop and listen. And
Yeah.
I didn't for 60 years.
Right. Yeah. No.
When I started doing it, I was shocked that it had so much to say.
Yeah. Right. And this pride of, you're not going to stop me. I can plow on through anything. In the end of the day, that's not what you want to do. It's what a lot of us do, but it's not. I don't regret anything I've ever done, but if I could go back, I would.
Right.
I would listen.
My functional doctor actually asked me how I accomplished as much as I did with my cortisol as low as it was. And
Yeah.
yep, I just plow through.
Yeah, that's
I have
stubborn.
things I want to do until I couldn't. And that was the point. I was girl interrupted. I couldn't.
Yeah, yeah. I have, perseverance is my defining characteristic, and I used it to, persevere. I'll leave, life and limb on the field before I quit, but I didn't use that to my advantage. And I have learned, what, that greatest attribute that I had that contributed to my illness is also the reason why I'm going to persevere over illness, but I'm going to do it the right way instead of running it over.
Yeah.
I'm going to be friends with my body and my illness, and we're going to partner, to lead ourselves out of it.
When you realized that and you started to make changes with the Wahl diet, which
Yeah.
has some pretty incredible results with people reading her book and improving their health.
Yes.
How long before you started to feel like you were in the right direction?
So that's a great question. I think I mentioned earlier that I gave it 30 days, literally 30 days.
So
And,
big of you.
I've been sick for 30 years, but I was going to give this 30 days. But I read the book in the 30 days. And what I learned from the book is, I needed to give it a solid 3 to 5 years just as a trial, because I could heal for at least 20 years. But honestly, within that 30 days, I saw some hope. I went through a pretty bad detox, which can last 30 days, but I did see, I was feeling better. It took me 18 months to achieve remission from every disease that I named. And in 24 months, I was able to stop all of my meds except my thyroid. So, I mean, for me, it was pretty quick, but everybody needs to think your toxic load, as you know, plays a big role, your genetics, how many things you're doing. One thing I really, really want to stress when I tell my story is it always sounds like I was sick and now I'm well, and it sounds like a magic wand was waved. And the truth is, health journey takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of sacrifice. It's not linear. I had ups and downs. I did not always stay positive. I had pity parties and setbacks and frustrations. But it's if you focus, what I learned is if you just focus on the healthy behaviors day to day, what you can control every day is adding healthy behaviors. And that will get you where you're going and help with the frustration. Um, it isn't overnight, and you do not have to make every change tomorrow. You do not, I mean, I focused on diet for a year, and then I added sleep hygiene the next year, and the third year I added movement. I added detox probably the fourth year. I'm in my sixth year of healing, and I'm going back to deal with old trauma. So one thing I want people to think is you don't have to get overwhelmed, because every change matters. If that's one a month or one a year, it matters. And so don't feel like, oh, I'm just overwhelmed, I can't do it all. Start somewhere.
Right.
Start with something
And every day do something.
every day. When you feel overwhelmed, just say, what can I do today? Can I put in what tool can I give my body, put in my mouth, or take away from my environment, or reduce my stress today to give my cells some room to heal? And if you just focus on the day to day, it becomes so much easier than, when am I going to be better?
Even
Are we
with
there yet?
my first book, I had a beta reader, and she went through her health and threw everything out as she found it, and almost caused World War III with her husband. She threw out all his favorite foods. So I did a workbook where you write down what you find is toxic in
Yes.
your life, but you don't have to eliminate it then.
Right.
When you run out of we've been using the old things all along. So when you run out of that thing, then you go to your workbook and you look at what do you want to replace it with, and that's what you replace it. It took me 5 years to eliminate hundreds of toxins.
Right.
Each toxin you eliminate is one step closer to health.
Matters. Right.
So,
And that's so brilliant, right? It's okay that it took 5 years, because look how, I mean, you just got to remember every step matters. And so it don't get overwhelmed or fearful. Knowledge is power, and it can feel like there's so many toxins and so much, and it's so overwhelming, but you have to say, it's already out there. You're not going to change reality by opening your eyes and realizing what reality is. So don't stick your head in the dirt, say, gosh, this feels overwhelming, but I'm going to do one thing today and one thing next month. And when you do that, I think those of us that are healing, probably everyone has the same story, that, hey, I'm still in the journey. It's been years, and I've still got a whole list of things to do, and I'm 6 years in, and that's okay.
right. I have, and I take steps back too. We all do.
Yes.
Where I was to where I am is night and day.
Yes.
The journey has absolutely been worth it.
Oh, I say on my website, you gave me goosebumps. I have yet to meet someone who has healed and said to me, boy, that wasn't worth it. That wasn't worth all the time and effort. Never have I ever heard anybody say that.
Just like another question I am always asked is, don't I feel deprived because I don't eat the standard American diet? When I have people come over for dinner, no one ever says, ooh, ick, I don't want to eat this. It's healthy.
No.
I'm still a foodie. I've just learned to make healthy foodie food. And so they'll eat it. They go, wow, this is good. And I'll go, yeah, well, this is what it is. And it's healthy. And then they're like, whoa. Nobody says, no, I don't want to eat it because it's healthy. And if you can find ways to eat that are healthy, that are still delicious, and there are ways to do it, that's what my whole second book is about.
Yep.
Then you are ahead of the game, and you can do it and still have a social life. And you can still do it and live your life, even though they're doing something totally different than you.
Mm.
It comes from being, you have the conviction that this is what you have to do for you. And if I don't do it, my body yells at me.
Yeah. Oh, yes. You got it. Yes. You have to be that self leader. I'll tell you a quick funny story. So my hobby business is autoimmune foodie, because I am a foodie and I want to eat well. And I wasn't going to do this if I had to eat cardboard, or lettuce. I didn't want to be a hamster. My coaching friend and I ran a retreat for a film company, and we decided that we were going to cook them all autoimmune friendly food, because we both have, I had lupus and she had type 1 diabetes. And when they found out, they were so upset that we were going to cook healthy food that they brought bags and bags of Pop-Tarts and chips and stuff. And we said, that's fine. If you want that, that's fine. Well, we made this fabulous food all week. And at the end of the week, I think there were 7 of them. 3 of them immediately adopted our diet, not for health reasons, because they just felt so amazing. And one man came into the kitchen and he burst into tears and he said, Shannon, if I lived with you, and he was significantly, overweight. He said, if I lived with you, I think I would be, I'd feel good and I'd be the weight I wanted to be. He said, this food was so good. He said, for the first time in my life, I went a week and not once did fast food or junk food cross my mind. I didn't want any of that stuff I brought. And, he started cooking. And so I agree with you that when you cook this way for people, they're like, I love this. This is better than what I've been eating. It is absolutely true.
I know.
I am not surprised.
It's
People love my food.
sometimes for me to get a client to start to cook and to
Yes.
start eating the rainbow, it's
Yes.
it's a little bit of a tug of war, but once they start, then they get it.
Yes. And they're not, then we go, you know what? We're not the crazy ones. This is amazing. 100%.
So, yep, same experience. Okay, tell people how they can find you.
Yeah, so right now I just suggest people go to my website, Autoimmune Foodie. If you go to, I have some free recipe books. I have a way to lower mold and mycotoxins in your diet, absolutely free. All my recipe books are free. If you sign up for my website right now, I have a free webinar that will be sent to you with a beautiful journal on 8 ways to live well right now, especially at home during the pandemic. So 8 ways to be creative and to eat well and to move and to socialize safely. So you'll get all that. And I'm very excited that I'll be writing my memoir soon. So if you're on my email list, you can hear about that. And my coaching friend and I are starting a beautiful leadership, some groups next year called Lead Yourself to Health. That's going to walk you through just the steps that I took to health. So all of that, if you just follow me on my website, and also please follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Autoimmune Foodie. That's where I post food daily for inspiration, and will be posting more and more information as I go on health and well-being.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you.
No.
I hope everyone has enjoyed our conversation, because we really were just getting to know each other. But once we had an interruption in our internet connection, it occurred to me this conversation was way too good not to use it. So I think everybody out there will glean a whole lot of important information because I had you on my show. So thank you very much. It's been delightful.
Oh, and you were just such a pleasure to connect with. And I know you're going to be a blessing in my life. And I just can't wait to grab your books and listen to your show.
Thank you. And I'm excited that you're going to write your own. That's good.
Eventually.
Okay. Thank you.